I'm sure by now many of you are aware of the current Ebola outbreak in Africa. The extent of the outbreak, however, is being suppressed. What many aren't aware of is, though we've had outbreaks before, this one is very different. The tests aren't working. The vaccine is not stopping the spread. And now there are multiple other factors. On the 20th of May, U.S. Navy sailor was found unresponsive on board the USS Arlington. She was quickly pronounced dead, with her name only being released earlier today. Lieutenant Kaylee Ludwig was a medical corps officer. She was part of a group directly responsible for supporting the 6th Fleet actions in Africa recently before her duty on the USS Arlington. And as a former U.S. Navy sailor myself and emergency room nurse, I find this all very concerning, because this is not the only suspicious incident that has occurred this year. The CDC and the World Health Organization have already admitted that they really have no idea how far the Ebola virus has traveled, and also, more frightening, is the fact that people who are testing clean are actually infected. They're finding out later, up to a year later, and that's just of who we know of. The tests just aren't working. There are treatments, but there is no cure. And even the treatments, it still has an 80% mortality rate. That is extremely frightening. The U.S. Navy has not released a cause of death, and the NCIS is looking into what could have killed a young, otherwise healthy sailor so quickly. I mean, it's pretty strange. She was only 28 years old. What aren't they telling us? I mean, many people may not understand the signs and symptoms, but in the early stages of Ebola, symptoms present kind of like the measles, mumps, malaria, or even the common flu. Earlier this year, an entire Navy ship with Marine Corps on board, the USS Fort McHenry, was quarantined at sea for 5 months. And most people have no idea. This was reportedly due to mumps. Mumps? Really? The entire crew was 100% verifiably vaccinated. The U.S. military vaccinates everybody for measles, pretty much everything. And then this month, a 400-foot cruise ship owned by the Church of Scientology was also quarantined in St. Lucia. In my previous video, I explained that there was a U.S. doctor who had been in Africa treating Ebola patients he contracted Ebola. They treated him in Africa. He seemingly made a complete full recovery. He returned back to the U.S., and then a few months later, he began having symptoms again. They kept testing him, and he repeatedly tested negative. They just had no idea what was going on. Then one morning, he woke up and noticed that he had 2 different color eyes. His normal blue eyes, he had 1 blue eye and 1 green eye. So what they did was they used a small needle to aspirate some fluid out of his eye, tested it, and it tested positive for Ebola. You may be wondering how that's even possible. Well, our eye technically is not connected to our blood system, except for the vessels, but that's besides the point. But that detail reminded me of a flurry of headlines that came out back in 2017, 2018, where people were discussing if Ivanka Trump or Melania had changed their eye color. You know, I just figured it was gossip talk, but then you look at the pictures, and well, as we see right here, it obviously shows a very different color eye. I'm not sure most of you even remember this because it wasn't highly publicized, but in early 2018, Muhammad Buhari, the president of Nigeria, visited the White House. A month later, Melania was hospitalized for a mysterious kidney problem, which everyone was quite shocked. I know I was, because she seemingly was very healthy. Nobody knew that there was something wrong with her. Is it possible that maybe Melania could have been infected by the Nigerian administration, maybe one of their bodyguards or someone that came along with them? I don't know. But after being hospitalized here, she ended up traveling, remember, to Africa in October of that same year. So it could have truly been that she was going out there to get treatment under the radar, and then she just did some tours and stuff to kind of cover it. I don't know. And just a couple months ago, there was an obvious body double that stood in for Melania in Alabama for one of Trump's rallies that he did, and it was obviously a body double. It was obviously not Melania. I even did a video on it because I just figured she was just taking the day off or something, you know, like whatever. Maybe she didn't feel like going, but now putting all these things together, maybe that's what it is. And Ivanka also has taken multiple trips to Africa. All of this is just not sitting well, and it's not adding up to the official narrative. I mean, we have multiple ships being quarantined, mysterious cases of the measles and the mumps, and now we have, just yesterday, California passing a legislation that essentially requires every single child to be vaccinated. There will not be any religious waivers allowed or anything. I think even for homeschooled kids. It is affecting our troops. We still have 6,000 troops in Africa, and they're talking about sending another 1,000. And they're not even talking about this. As a veteran of the U.S. Navy and also a former emergency room nurse, all of these things just are not adding up. There's just too many suspicious things on board ships. I was on board a destroyer and a oiler, but on all of the naval vessels, we have ways that we keep the air circulating correctly to where if there are biological situations, that it's called negative pressure, and so whenever you open one door, you stand inside. So you have one door, you get inside, close that other door, and then you open the other door. And that's to keep any type of biological situations out. And so for an entire ship to come down with some mysterious something that they're calling mumps, it just doesn't make any sense. I mean, everybody's vaccinated. I mean, she was 28 years old. Just mysteriously died in Iraq. And Iraq was where you sleep. But not only that, she was a medical officer who helped out in Africa. So, did she have Ebola? Or did she know something? So, I don't know, guys. All I know is Ebola is here. Ebola is in the United States. The question is, what are you going to do about it? what are we going to do about it? Definitely sharing this. Like, share, subscribe if you're not. And I will keep y'all updated. That's really all I know right now. It's just something keeps popping up. More stuff, more stuff. Y'all have a wonderful day.